So many times when I talk about mindfulness to people, yoga gets thrown in. I've never done it. I've never tried it. But
What?
but you know what? I always suffer from like stiff back. I play badminton like 3, 4 times a week, and because I meditate regularly, it's like, yeah, yoga is it just makes so much sense. So can you explain for someone like me that's never tried yoga, but you know, a heavy practitioner in mindfulness, what is the cross section? Now you begin to speak a little bit about it there, right?
Yeah.
Is it because some people get to understand the concepts of mindfulness through yoga rather than, they don't like the idea of sitting on a mat, but through holding postures or something, it allows them that space to be mindful,
So I will
perhaps.
say before I
Yeah.
dive in, my father, who my greatest teacher, one of my closest friends, like just the most amazing man, he's passed probably 7 years ago, 7 and a bit years ago. And he said he had three regrets in life. And one of them was that he waited till he was 70 to pick up yoga.
Yeah.
So there's a testament from, and he was not a wiry man. He was not a flexible man. So what is it about yoga? I think such a great question.
Yeah, because it's so heavily related. You go into groups about mindfulness. There's a massive part of that mindfulness group that is yoga, or they learn
Mhm.
mindfulness through yoga, or there's that connotation. So yeah, I'd love to learn a little bit more about that.
So I'm sure there's a technical answer to this, but I'm going to tell you my answer because
Yeah,
this is
please,
more from my heart or what
please,
my
yeah,
my my, my experience. Um, there is something to m- moving through a consistent set of practices where you are opening your body, opening your breath, and bringing your full consciousness onto the mat. And the yogic practice is part mental. I'm here now doing this one posture right here, right now. It's part physical. Like I like I like hot yoga. So like it can be hard just to stay on the mat in the heat in that one posture. So there's a mental here now. There's a physical taxing and a physical kind of pushing up against
like
your
a
edges.
pain endurance almost.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I love to telemark. I've run marathons. It's not that type of pain, but more kind of it's almost like how do I hold myself to the highest standard of what I think I'm capable of
Really. Hmm.
and push up against my edge. And so when I'm practicing in a way that feels really congruent, I'm stretching my own conception. So I'm going to kind of do a quick like teach piece.
Please, yeah, please.
So I came to leadership working with police executives, police chiefs from large jurisdictions. And it was
Right.
true. We ate a lot more donuts. Thursday was donut day. So I like the chocolate cake
Yeah,
donut. We get up a little extra early to get there.
yeah,
If you think of a donut, the donut hole is your comfort zone. Everything's safe, easy, familiar. You can be unconscious. The donut is your actual learning zone where you're trying new things, you're pushing your envelope,
mhm,
you're learning new skills. And the outer edge of the donut is where you hit terror's edge, where you hit analysis paralysis. We can live on that outer edge, but if we live on that outer edge for too long, it's where we hit burnout. It's where we hit breakdown. It's where we hit analysis paralysis. So my goal when I'm working with people is to keep them in the donut where they're growing and they're learning and they're trying new things, but not hitting that breakdown point. Because if
right.
you live in your learning zone and it's here, that learning zone soon becomes your comfort zone. And so your donut keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And your
So the donut
capacity,
is your comfort zone, right? And when you go beyond
the
that,
donut
that's the
hole.
edges.
No, the
The
hole is
donut.
your comfort zone. The
Okay. So
hole.
the whole is the comfort zone. Okay.
And so like a way you can think about that is um if you've ever had the experience of like remembering when you left your home and remembering when you get to the office, but you don't remember the commute,
Mm-hmm.
that's your comfort zone. That's where you went unconscious because you didn't need to think about it. It's so easy and so familiar.
Yeah.
Your learning zone is where you have to put attention and intention to thinking about, okay, where
Okay.
am I going? How am I getting there?
Yeah.
Um, terror's edge for me was driving in Vietnam. We're driving on the opposite side of the road, like these roundabouts with 6 lanes of traffic and like people drawn carts, donkey drawn carts, bike drawn carts. I mean, it was mayhem. That's where I hit analysis paralysis.
Mine was crossing the road in Vietnam. So yeah, yeah. Yours was driving. Mine was actually crossing the road in Vietnam. Yeah, but yeah,
it's crazy. It is.
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
And then, not to mention, like they have a different alphabet, so like totally off the radar there.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, like if you live in the learning zone, your learning zone becomes your comfort zone, and your donut expands.
Yeah.
So when you are in yoga on the mat and you push up against your edge and you're holding a posture and you're stretching a little bit more and you're walking that razor edge of like, what am I capable of and what I'm not capable of? Mm-hmm. And each time you hold that edge a little bit longer, you build your capacity. It's the same way like with mindfulness that you build each time you come back to your breath, you build your capacity.
Yeah.
So there's something about being on the mat because you have all those emotions coming up, especially if it's a challenging, you're pushing your physical kind of conception. And then when you invest in your body and your mind and your physical and your emotional, you're building your spiritual intelligence, right? Like you're building your prana or your capacity to go out and serve in the world. And then there's this whole other thing that, gosh, I'm just missing in such a big way of like being on the mat next to people. And
so the community aspect of it is important then.
Yeah. For some people, I mean, I've really missed that. I really miss that. And
really? Okay.
I can tell you,
interesting. Yeah.
I can tell you I've been on the mat sometimes and like going through an incredible like breakup. And I have felt the people beside me carry me.
Really?
Yeah, like just really? Like carry my energy through. And then I've been on the mat and I've been carrying someone else's load and chopping their water and carrying their water. And these are strangers, but yet there's this like this interesting like intersectionality.
Connection, yeah.
And this is where I think the work that you're leaning into of like corporate meditation is providing people skills and experiences and community and language where they can be in relationship with each other in a different way that opens up a whole new set of possibilities. And, you know, we're going through that great resignation. It's so overdone, but people want something different. And I think whether it's mindfulness practices or a way of engaging on the mat of life differently with people want that level of authenticity, that connectedness, that kind of synergies. That's sorry, you got me on my Camellisms.
Yeah, no, perfect. So
exciting.
So the way that you're describing it, would you, if you were to encourage mindfulness, would you do it in combination with yoga as well? You know, for you, do they seem very hand in hand, or is it, you know, is it? Yeah. Would you prescribe that almost hand in hand, or is it? Do they each have their own space and their own benefits?
It brings me back to that article. David's like, so do you assign mindfulness? And I was like, no, I never assign mindfulness because people can react to it differently. Yeah. But here's an example of, I did a keynote on gender, the neuroscience of gender differences. It's you know, International Women's Month. And one way you can link people in is by saying, I want you to take a moment and I want you to think about a woman you feel deeply passionate about, someone you want to thrive in the world, right? That's like this moment of mindfulness where people are centering on one thing that they care most, one woman. And then I launch into talking about the neuroscience of gender differences. They can hear it through a very different set of lenses because they've kind of primed their mind and opened their heart to a different set of
Yeah.
A kind of a communal rather than an individual. So to your question, there's so many gateways. I think you have to figure out what's right for you and the individual. The other nugget is, I have little people. I have a 6 and an 8-year-old, so they're just delightful. But you have to figure out what's the right size step for them. And finding the right size step so it's a little bit of a stretch, so it's in their learning zone, but not such a big stretch that they're gonna be like,
not
Mama,
too off-putting. Yeah, you don't want to like, yeah. I've got a 2 and a 5-year-old, and
such a fun age and such a busy age, man. I mean, that's like a
yeah,
lot to be mindful to. Kids are such a gift of mindfulness. They will
yeah,
give you feedback like that if you are not present. Like
yeah,
they,
yeah. Well, as John
um,
Kabat-Zinn says, like they are the best mindfulness teachers. The young ones. And they're
yeah.
just like you can just see them so present in everything that they do. It's
So
truly
can I tell you a quick
yeah.
nugget on that?
Please, please, please.
So I've been in this year-long program studying with an integrative MD, and it's been just an incredibly captivating experience. And so this past weekend, my husband and I were wrapping up. It was a virtual program with all that's going on. And we had some friends come by. We had some favorite babysitters hanging out with our kids. And my daughter, like, I opened my door and she just wanted to snuggle. She's
Yeah,
sick.
yeah,
She just like physically wanted to be attached to me.
yeah,
And I took that as like feedback that she could feel all my mindfulness over the weekend had bottled up. And she was like, I don't know what it is, but like
yeah,
koala me. I want some of
yeah.
that. I think people will start, for the work that you're doing. I think the most, not the most, but one absolutely captivating thing is when you shift yourself,
Mm-hmm.
the face you present is the face you receive. When you shift yourself and
Right.
bring it out into the world, people start responding differently. And it
Mm-hmm.
becomes this like catalytic, fulfilling,
Wow.
synergistic
Mm-hmm.
addiction in the best kind of way. I'm sure you've had this experience too.
Yeah, and I think that's why when people ask me about the ultimate benefits of mindfulness, I'm like, it's happiness. It's just like, connection with your colleagues, connection with your friends, but with your family. To be more authentic, so that, like you said, like your daughter can tap into that and just want to be a part of it as well. And that's what I'm trying to be. I'm just trying to be as true to myself, and I want to wear my emotions on my sleeve. I want to be genuine, beyond the ego, and try and be as positive and helpful as I can be. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think to your point, very much so.
It's such a journey and such a I don't think of it as a destination, but as a lifelong journey towards that.
It's all about the journey, right? Well, speaking of your journey, so if I would say to you, what matters most to you, given your immense education, your travel, and I'm sure there's been some highs and some lows. There's been some TED Talks, there's been some Forbes magazine, and releasing your books and publishing them. But at the same time, I'm sure there's been heartbreak and pain and suffering along the way. What for you? What for you matters most?
Such an interesting question. I think it's a relationship. I think it's the heart center and the relationships that come from that.